Hello everyone, welcome to the Eonics podcast, a podcast about software engineering, the new way of working. And today we have a lot of other interesting stuff. Let me first introduce myself. My name is Amir and I am working for Eonics as a consultant, and currently my assignment is for BMW, and we are doing quite a lot of stuff in there. So today I am joined by Yobyn. Welcome, Yobyn. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Yobyn. I'm 36 years old, married, got 2 kids, a boy and a little girl. My boy is 6 years old. Sorry, my girl is 5 years old. I've just recently started with Eonics as well on the 1st of November. I've last week have been placed at the client. The client is Delta Fiber. And I enjoy mountain biking, doing outdoor activities, and
And so it's like quite recently. You said 1st of November.
The 1st of November, yeah.
It has been 3 weeks.
Yeah,
so,
that's
okay,
correct.
welcome to Eonics.
Thank you very much.
And what do you do for your job?
So I'm a software consultant or software engineer, mainly focusing on the Java language. I also do Python and other small like Angular front-end things. But my primary focus is Java.
All right. Looks interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
And let's go to the topic of today. So we have Spring Boot and Spring Security, and of course OAuth too.
Yeah, right.
Do you want to? I have some questions, but let's. I'll give it to you to start, and then.
Okay. Sorry. The main thing for me and regarding Spring and the Spring framework is the way it basically simplifies makes it a bit easier for a developer to implement specific technologies. So
it facilitates a lot. Basically.
It facilitates a lot. So a lot of stuff happening in the background, which is can also be a negative thing. So it's very important for a Spring developer to know exactly what is happening in the background. So upskill yourself, learn the technology and things like that. Before, my suggestion or my advice to anyone working on the Spring framework is to understand the Spring framework before you start implementing it in Java.
Yeah, can you elaborate a bit? So I think you're referring to the way that first Spring framework was born. So it was like a dependency injection or inversion of control, and then there are a lot of other modules added on top of it. So I think that's something that you're referring to.
Yeah,
maybe?
correct. Yes, correct. So the main focus of Spring is the data integration. The dependency injection. Dependency injection of Spring. And then there's other technologies as well, like JDBC, JPA, which is built into Spring, or that makes the life easier to connect to a database using repositories. And there's AOP, aspect-oriented programming, which also helps for the
annotation-based programming or cross-cutting logics.
Yes, exactly. Separation of concern.
Yes.
So it helps you with your separation of concern, so that you don't have everything, one class, one function has your logging, your security, your business logic, your web. Everything is basically separated. So AOP helps with the separation of your logs and your security and your transactions, things like that.
And I think we said that we have IOC or dependency injection, and then you mentioned AOP.
Yes.
And I think there are many other modules that, if you choose to use Spring Framework, will be available to you. So
correct. It depends on the project and what it's required.
And not recently, this is not recently anymore, but they separated their stack into 2 main. One is the blocking, classic Spring MVC, and then the other one is WebFlux, basically. So it's like a non-blocking. So if you choose one of them, then the rest of the stack will be affected.
100%, yeah. So you can't mix it. Like exactly like one of your, you can't really mix the technologies. You need to be very careful when you do. You can't just drag in, oh, this one might work or this might work. You need to understand what you're pulling in and how it operates in the Spring world.
And I think AOP or aspect-oriented programming would be a good bridge to talk about security, because security is to be handled as a cross-cutting concern, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So it's like things that needs to be done especially when we talk about a web application. So it needs to be handled in a like aspect-oriented way.
100%. So AOP helps also with the security from the Spring, so method level security. So before you call, you can confirm if the user has been authenticated. So you can use that pre-authentication annotations. So that is quite important, just to make sure that obviously as your user navigates through your application, that this user is who he says he is, basically. So you need to make sure that this person, before you make a calling a function or making use of any of the application, it basically confirms that this is the user, so that no hacker or person that's not supposed to get information is getting that information.
And I think you're mostly talking about a Spring security.
That's correct, yeah.
So what's your experience using a Spring Boot with Spring security? So
it's again like all other applications from the Spring the company or cluster, all the information from Spring, is that Spring has all these little components. So and Spring Security is one of them that makes it a lot easier for a developer to implement security into your application. It comes with out of the box with extra like cross-site scripting, prevents cross-site scripting, like cross-site request forgery and things like that. So with the cross-site scripting, it prevents like Java scripts being injected into your application and cross-site
So you're referring to the way that Spring Security helps to basically implement or add security to your application.
Correct. Yeah. Basically, it comes in. It's automatically like the cross-site server requests.
Yeah.
So it is enabled by default. So any perpetrator, if you like a client, you logged into an application.
Yes.
And a perpetrator tries to send you a link, and it tries to pull money from the bank account into his account. This cross-site server request basically prevents that by injecting a CRSV token and making sure that this person this request is coming actually from the server, or from the EU client, and not from the perpetrator or the hacker.
Yes, and I think let's go a bit more into the details. So if you want to give an example of challenges, because it's, of course, Spring Security helps a lot in simplifying the way that we secure the applications. Yeah. What would be like in practice challenges? Could you give one example?
So if I understand correctly, so practice challenges of Spring Security.
Yes. So you started to secure your application with Spring Security, but of course, not everything is simple. So was there any challenge?
Challenges from my side, basically understanding is the biggest thing. How to implement Spring Security itself is the biggest.
So you're referring to first configuration. I think.
Correct.
I saw some people they found it difficult to configure Spring Security, at least for the first rounds, because you need to basically connect to somewhere. You need to set up everything in place. Yeah.
So getting Spring Security up and running is quite simple. It's depending on just injecting that dependency or getting that dependency in your Maven or your Gradle, but getting it set up, getting it ready for production is quite a journey. Yeah.
Yes, and I remember that I saw So some people complaining about like they have a Spring, for example, they have a Spring security configured and running, but then they decided to make some changes on the filters, and then everything is acting differently. So
yeah, again, like if you want to do anything on a Spring framework or component, you need to understand that framework or component from end to end. But that's the thing. Because if it's not implemented correctly from the beginning, upgrading or changing it is going to be quite a hassle. So 100%, yeah, you need to understand what you're doing. It should be technically speaking, should be quite simple to change, but then you need the configuration or the workings of it to run optimally in the beginning.
So let's talk about testing now, because obviously we are software developers, software engineers. We need to test what we build, and I think when it comes to security, it could be a bit challenging writing unit tests or integration tests. What's your experience in this?
One would think that, but yes, from my experience, it was actually quite simple. So writing unit tests and making sure you can say add user, and you can give, say, Yobyn. So I'm logged in as user, and then you can run a few scripts.
So you have like a utility annotation to say that, okay, I'm logging in, assuming that this user is logged in, and then
and confirm if he's got these following authentication or access rights, and then you can see, okay, listen, he's got access to maybe the products, but he doesn't have access to maybe the banking details of the person. So you can see, it's quite simple. Makes it quite simple.
All right, looks good. And so if usually I divide when I talk about security, two major concepts comes to my mind. So authentication and authorization.
Yeah.
So when we talk about authentication, basically users need to say who they are, and where did you store the user identities, basically?
Okay, so the way that we've implemented at my previous client is that we didn't really work on the authorization, more the authentication. Is where we had an authorization server,
yes,
and they confirmed that the user is. So you get your credentials, and then you pass the client secrets, the client API, and we worked on the resource server. So we've confirmed that the user is saying, listen, he's got the necessary access with the bearer token, the payload, and we validated the JOT, token.
So you validate the token that this user has the current, the correct roles,
scope and things like that. Correct. Yeah.
And was there any standard that they follow, like OAuth 2?
Yeah, so OAuth 2 was the standard that we followed with the bearer token. Yeah, was part of the REST API requests.
Okay, and how about OIDC, OpenID Connect?
OpenID Connect? No, I can't recall it.
Okay. So you use OAuth to build the security flows for the project, basically.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, and there was additional information added. Okay, I can't go too much detail because it's a bank that I worked for.
That's totally okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there was additional information added into the payload of the JOT to make sure that the person, say you're married to your wife, obviously, and you've got specific rights, so you can do transactions on her behalf, and she gave you authorization. So there's some additional information to not only making transactions on behalf of yourself, but you can do transactions on behalf of your wife or get additional documentation from your wife. So yeah, there's some extra information that you can put into a JOT.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thanks for your time.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Thank you for the knowledge sharing today.
Thanks.
Fine. And talk to you later.
Yeah. Thank you very much.